I'm really excited about tonight's Pearl of Wisdom, Coherence. Now, Mynoo Maryel will share the 7 secrets that attain coherence in what you are intentional about. So we set the intention, then there's the 7 secrets to attain coherence. You're going to get to see how coherence is the most effective way to activate a power surge. I said it's like a fountain, and then I was like, not a fountain, maybe a water hose. And that results in inspired velocity. So you'll be able to realize your intention very quickly. Now, coherence is like the magic formula, the magic potion to live your life with what we call JEGO. And I think most of you are familiar with JEGO. This is joy, ease, grace, omnipresent. So we're setting our intention and we're having all the parts of the puzzle come together at lightning speed. That's what I'm imagining this Pearl of Wisdom will be about. So again, we are on our 105th Pearl of Wisdom out of 108 Pearls of Wisdom. I'm with you to kick this Pearl of Wisdom off, and then Sunny will be with Mynoo to conclude it. And I will be in another realm at that time. But it's so nice to have you all every Thursday. We have 3 more weeks of our Pearls of Wisdom. And then who knows? The great unknown. We will see where we go from there. So once again, welcome to you all. 105th Pearl of Wisdom, Coherence. Can't wait to hear about the 7 secrets to attain coherence in whatever you are intentional about, whatever you set your intention. So thank you all for joining. And I'm going to have to listen to this on my Facebook Live because I'm not going to be able to stay for the whole entire session, but have a blast. This is going to be absolutely amazing. And I'm so excited that you're all with us. And Mynoo, I'm going to go ahead, turn it over to you, and I will see you on the other side.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, so nice to see you here, Linda. I was thinking about you this morning, going to message you to say, let's have a catch up. So, welcome. And thank you, Sunny, for concluding it for us. So yes, let's begin 105th Pearl of Wisdom. So Sunny, I'm just going to make you co-host so you can keep seeing people entering the waiting room. Okay. Hey, my gosh, Tokes, 1:30 in the morning. Okay, wonderful. That's dedication. Okay, coherence. I mean, it's one of my favorite words, and it's also something that is so important for this age. It's one of the commandments, even, which is a shift, one of the 10 commandments of the new world, which is a shift from alignment to flow to coherence. So I'm excited that coherence is a pearl of wisdom. So pearl of wisdom, what qualifies for something to be a pearl of wisdom is if you only focused on this one thing, it literally unblocks and blossoms in so many different ways that we can make a significant contribution to making, creating a world that delivers to everyone. So let's look at what is this? What is this magic of coherence? Like I said, it's a magic potion to live your life with joy, ease, grace, omnipresent. Coherence itself, as the dictionary defines it, it's a state or a situation in which all parts or ideas just fit together. And they fit together so well that they form a united whole. And we're going to look at the 7 secrets to attain coherence. Now, my first introduction to the experience of coherence was actually a very physical one. And it was with a dear friend who is crossed over now. And she's written a book called Super Coherence. And it was, I read the book first before I went to see her. And I went to see her, nothing to do with coherence. I actually went to see her because one of the things that she talked about was this biodome, which is like a light dome. and you can go lie in it, and it's a dome that, covers you from your chest all the way back. And it's a dome that you have the controls in your hands. And the dome actually juts out monochromatic light. And you can choose whichever light you're called to be in. Now, like literally, it's like you're surrounded 360 degrees by this light. And the idea is that light, that monochromatic light, feeds the brain cells and strengthens your nervous system. And you're only meant to take it for 10 minutes once a month. It's not something that you take too much of. And it literally gets your brain firing on all cylinders. It enriches your creativity. That's how I went to see her. And I had the experience of the biodome, and it was amazing. I was like, exuberant, elated, completely elevated state, and didn't feel like going anywhere. I just felt like sitting there in complete stillness. And she said to me, can I just take a photo of you? Because I feel you are in a state of complete coherence. In fact, you may even be super coherent. And I said, no, I didn't. It felt very like a very odd comment. But then she explained a little bit about it. I still didn't agree for her to take a photo of me. I said, no, it's all fine. It's all fine. Let me just enjoy this bliss. But I will come back to you because I think my partner may be very incoherent. He's had a stroke and he's got a condition called aphasia. So maybe we can use your super coherence frequencies. I'll bring him back. So she said, well, make sure that you bring some photographs from his childhood, from his young age, and also from your childhood and your young age. So we come back a few days later, and we have these photographs with us. And she photographs my partner, Phil. And so really what this camera does is, if you're coherent, the photograph will be completely wonderful, like in focus. And if you're not coherent, you will see 2 or 3 images of you. And the degree to which you're incoherent because the Polaroid camera captures it all. And the camera is on a stand. So it's not as if somebody's holding it. It was on a stand and she was clicking it with that. So she takes his photograph and he seems to be relatively fine. There's very, very slight incoherence. So then she says, why don't you stand next to him and let me take a photograph? So I stand next to him and he goes incoherent, and I'm fine, but he goes incoherent and I am a little bit incoherent. So then she says to me, well, actually, it's not him, and we need to work on you. So let's get your photographs. And we'll see when this incoherence began and when it was, at some point, it would have been really extreme. And then you've done stuff in your life which has actually made you less incoherent, but there's something that has occurred. So I take these photographs and I'm holding them and she's taking these pictures. And I'm, as I'm going younger and younger, my photographs are becoming more and more blurry. And there's a photograph that's there of me 6 days old. And that is super blurry. So then it was like, okay, we've got to find out what it is that caused that super blurriness. Do you have a photograph of your parents, your father and your mother? And I had a photograph of my father and mother individually taken when they were getting married, So I'd kept that with me. So she said, well, hold the photograph of your father. And sure enough, I just thought it would be my father, with whom there was serious communication difficulties that I had when I was growing up. That is where it would have stemmed in. And actually, I was very coherent holding the photograph of my father. And when I held the photograph of my mother, who I loved dearly, and she could do nothing wrong, and I was like completely blurry. You could barely say that it was me. And this is the same camera on that same tripod with this little, she had this little thing on the side where she would press it and the click would happen. So the camera was not shaking at all. I knew that for a fact. So then she said, well, it is something to do with your mother. And I said, okay, let's get all the photographs you have of your childhood, not adulthood, like ideally below 3 years old with your mother. And I was the first grandchild of the family. So I was very photographed, like lots of, my uncles and aunts and mom was also into photography. Lots of photographs were there of me. Everywhere there was a photograph of me and my mom, I was never looking at her. I was looking away from her. You could see the love oozing out of her, but I was looking away from her. And I said, well, what does this mean? I mean, I love her so much, and she's just cannot do anything wrong. She says it may just be that there might just have been a mismatch of expectations when you were a child, which you don't necessarily know, but it'll be something in your subconscious. And then there's a particular frequency that she, gave me, which is like crystals. And it took only a few minutes. And that's when I really landed with this coherence part. I mean, she took the photograph with the same sequence of photographs of the same people, and they were completely clear. And really what happens is when you are in a state of coherence, you are as if you are in a zero field. And in a zero field, there is no illness that can exist in zero field. Everything is just completely clear. That's what happens. And so, I took the frequencies away and the zero field disappeared and the incoherence again appeared. Now, the idea is you work with the frequencies over a sustained period of time and you're in a zero field state and your body automatically starts to clean and clear itself. So that you don't have to have the frequency all the time, but it can take a few months, it can take a few years, but that's what happens. But my reason for sharing this is that visually what it looks like, it is literally like a magic potion, where everything, all the dots connect, they all come together and you are a united whole. That is what coherence is. And I can see why coherence is a pearl of wisdom. And that's why we are sharing it. Now, just to complete the story about my mother and I, because I did examine it, at that point, I had not gone through my spiritual awakenings. Many years later, fast forward, I go through my spiritual awakenings, and this thing had always stuck with me. I want to understand, what is it that got me to become incoherent when I was with my mother? And it actually goes back to the moment of how I took my first breath, So my mother slipped and fell in the bathroom just at the start of the 7th month of pregnancy, and her waters broke. So she was rushed into the hospital, and at that time in India, they always really did whatever they could to enable a natural birth. So she had 36 hours of labor, and I was born this tiny little 1 kilo baby, which, and then in India, you do a horoscope straight away, and they knew that I wasn't going to die, that I had a life ahead of me. So they actually said, oh, it's okay, let her be with her mother. That's what she requires at this stage, rather than put me in an incubation chamber. But there were all sorts of gasping for breath. I couldn't feed, and so all sorts of stuff. And it was what I saw as a scene was as if I was really screaming at my mom, do not rush into the bathroom, because she would always wake up at 4 a.m., go have a shower or a bath or whatever she did, and then do her violin practice. And I saw when I went back into that time frame what had actually occurred. I did not want her to do that, because I guess I was seeing some danger coming, and she still did it. And she, went into this space. And there was some major discord in the whole family about, a lot of blame conversations were happening. My mom couldn't possibly blame at the time. She was just in pain, in labor. But I was actually felt very vulnerable, very threatened, and just didn't feel anybody cared. And my mom was in her own world at the time, so felt that she didn't care either. And lo and behold, this incoherence set in. And it was carried all the way through until I chose to do something about it. Now, the good thing is we all have some incoherences at some point that may have been set in. It doesn't mean that you can't rectify it. You know, the frequencies, I had the opportunity to meet this amazing woman who had created this. And there are some of these available, but not a lot of them. And now she's not there. So my inquiry has been, how do people get into a state of coherence? Earth is what helps you, you know? So earthing yourself, getting into a zero volt really helps you bring that coherence back, which is a state in which all the parts or ideas fit together to form a completed whole. Let's look at the first one. And what we're doing here is elaborating more and more into the 7 secrets that will help you attain coherence in what you are intentional about. So the first one is complete. Complete is really having all of the necessary or appropriate parts. They're all there, they're all in place, and you feel complete. Now, in a full spectrum of well-being way, which is what I talk about all the time, it is about feeling whole and complete in all areas of your life, in all aspects, in all of these cylinders. And when you choose to be complete in each of these 6 cylinders, you are whole. And literally all of the necessary parts are there, and you've acknowledged that they're there. So, and here's really what happens that gets us to become incomplete. We have different stages that we go through in life. You know, as a young child, there you are, you're very, very reliant on your parents and other adults as your guardians and your teachers. And then from that young child, you become a little bit more self-reliant as you enter your teenage years. And then you become a young adult at the age of 17, 18, and you start wanting to reclaim your independence. And then you enter your 20s, at which point you have an opportunity to start self-actualizing. Now, each of these is a very different state. And we don't complete, you know, and enter the new state. So we carry the baggage from the previous state to the next state. And when things don't quite turn out, we go into a form of remnants, you know, like really remembering how things were. And that's all fine to begin with. And after a while, that remembering starts to sometimes have a little lacing of regret. And when relationships start to evolve, it starts to have a little lacing of resentment at times. So, but when you actually adopt this secret of complete, whether somebody else completes or not, but if you take the time to complete the stage that you are just finishing before you enter the new realm, you are whole and complete with what has occurred. You have given instructions to yourself, to your body, that you can indeed, you know, take the best of that time as a foundation upon which I now stand as I move forward. Think about complete in the context of relationships. We have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you know, and we begin, or we have a fiance. We begin a relationship, and it's all quite beautiful, great things to look forward to. And then you choose to change from being a girlfriend, boyfriend to actually deciding that you're actually going to get married. You become, you know, engaged, or you become, you change from girlfriend, boyfriend to becoming a fiance. It's a different state from a fiance, you actually then finally get married. If you do, but if you, let's say you get married. Now, these are all different states that you enter, where the expectations are actually quite different. Girlfriend, boyfriend, you're still in the dating realm, and you may even be cohabitating, but there is a sense of freedom in terms of you can be yourself, and you know that you can choose to step away if this thing doesn't quite work out. May take some time depending on how you are, but that's definitely there. Fiance, there is, parents are involved, families are involved. Marriage, there are expectations which are quite different from a fiance or from a girlfriend, boyfriend, as opposed to when you get married. And then we get married, and then we have, children. Now we are parents, co-parents, not just husband and wife, not just lovers that we were before, but we don't complete. So there is this little jibe that sneaks in from time to time. Oh, you never do this anymore, and oh, I feel cheated. You were like this, and now you're not. Well, that it's a different era and a different personality. And a lot of the time, that when you do the completion of that time and you step into the new realm in a clearing, you have an opportunity to co-create. As you're stepping in from one state of life to another and you haven't completed, then you're carrying that baggage into the other one. So there's very little space for you to co-create. So your creation becomes often decisions of compromise. That, he's always like this, or she's always like this. I just have to put up with this. Oh my God, you have no idea what I have to put up with. Well, if you complete, there's nothing to put up with. In that completion, and Tokes, you were in the recent romance, Refresh, Restore, Resurrect immersion with me in person in Rishikesh. A big part of that was all about completion. Really completing different facets of your life. And we've discovered, as we were taking people through this journey, that there are major healings that are required by people as they go through it. And often people think, oh gosh, how am I going to cope with this? I'll have to find a healer and it's going to take a lot of time. No, what we did was we got each person to step in as the healer themselves. And that powerful, powerful completion took place. And that is what really unleashed this romance. But really what I was unleashing there, and Tokes, you will now know, is you were entering a zero field where you could literally accomplish anything. You were actually entering a realm of coherence. Every person that we did the completion with, and if you were in that space, in that container, it was electrifying. It was electrifying because when you are in a space of coherence, it's like your holographic expansiveness of your vibrations, that holographic field of yours becomes massive. That's what happens. And that's why it feels like a magic potion that delivers on cue every time. Joy, ease, grace, omnipresent. So how do you, having heard me, it feels like, yes, I want that. So how do you do it for yourself? Just do a lay of the land examination. Take on board each area of your life, physical, mental, emotional, and just look at what are the different stages in your life that you have transcended, and in the physical, you will know that there were particular points in your life where there was a very definite change that took place. Within you, you can go back to that time and just declare everything that had occurred up to that point in time, to the time that I was 11 years old, I mean, for me, certainly when I got my first period, was one of such times. And nobody told me anything about it. They just didn't talk about these things at the time. So it was like such a shock. And it was discovered by some of my school friends in class when my uniform got spotting. And they were teasing me, and all, that's when I got called into the teacher, and I just thought, oh my God, I've done something pretty nasty. And then it was explained to me what had happened. On the other hand, there was great excitement that I was coming of age. So it was a time of great confusion, actually. Didn't know whether to be happy or sad. So that moment in time, that confusion and that fear about something that was completely out of my control and pretty awful and so visual had taken place, was like a snapshot just trapped in me. So the blossoming of my womanhood began with the lacing of confusion and a shock, horror. So going back and completing that age of 11 really opened the doorway for me to feel truly, madly, deeply in love with myself. So just look at different stages in your life, which were such milestones. I found the access to complete as the secret. I found the access when I was examining it. I found the best access was to physical. When I could feel a very definite physical shift in me. And that, of course, addressed all of the mental, emotional, spiritual stuff as I completed on those areas. Then there was another point when the first time my ex-husband hit me. That was one such moment. That time when I'd almost miscarried and then the baby was saved. That particular moment in time when the doctors came in and said, okay, you're fine. It's all fine. It is the baby is fine. That was one of such moments. So you'll have those in your life. Because when I was losing the baby, I was really beating myself up because I was working on a multi-million-pound computer software development project. And I was the project leader, and I was so busy working all the time because I would be, this morning sickness began very early on in my pregnancy. And I just wanted to finish what I was doing as soon as I could, all the time, rushing. And then when I started having the miscarriage symptoms, I was beating myself up. And I had continued to hold that energy of me really putting my family last and holding that sense of guilt in me. When I did that completion, it all went back to that time. Even though the baby was saved and he's born and he's now 33 years old, but there was that moment in time where whatever I had gone into, it was a crescendo of making myself feel so guilty and ashamed at taking my work so seriously, was like at a cellular level was there as a trauma. And by adopting completion, I honored those choices. And there was an unleashing that took place. I literally felt as if like I would have carried this neck pain all the time. It's like that neck pain just disappeared. And it was this completion to step back into coherence. There is great value. We can do so much by simply going into meditation. I get that. And when it's our physical body that is living this life. It is our physical body that expresses our connection to spirit. The spiritedness of us is expression through the physical body. I like to honor my body fully, by using it as a way of indicating how I'm feeling at a particular point in time and using it as a very powerful partner in deep self-healing. So this is the first secret to attain coherence. complete. Complete certain relationships that you might have experienced, certain milestones, turning points in those relationships. Your relationship to yourself changes. There was a particular point in my life where my relationship to myself changed from my body just doesn't seem to care anymore. I drink water and I put on weight. And then I went back to where it began, and there was a particular moment in time where that began, and I was able to complete that moment, and I stopped berating my body. So now that my body was not so loaded with my beration of years, but actually felt honored, and now it could start to recalibrate. So to choose what it is for you, I'm just sharing examples on how I have worked with this. Let's look at the second one, the second secret to attain coherence. It's orderly. Orderly is basically neatly and methodically arranged. And really this is one of those pearls of wisdom where the 7 secrets, you do them in sequence. So when you've done the first one, you've completed your work on complete. It will not take one day. It will take perhaps 1 month, because you don't want to rush the completion. There is no rush. It can take a few months. It can take a few years even, but that's fine. You can keep returning to it, but give it a good month, going into different areas of your life and completing those moments in time. What happens is you automatically start distilling this amazing learning from each of those moments. And you can then neatly and methodically, choose to allocate how that learning has served you. So you don't have to hold on to the whole incident. You can, in fact, move forward. And you're really taking the learning from that time to serve you. So when I looked at the first time that my partner hit me, and then I went through that completion, and then all those times where I just so wanted to take action and I wasn't able to for 10 years, they were all times where I really did feel, I did berate myself. I did beat myself up for, not taking action. And lo and behold, physically, I was being beaten up. I mean, hey, where did that beating up begin? It began with me first, and then it was like, oh my goodness, okay, he might have done it once, he might have done it twice. He would not have been able to do it another time. I would have taken action, and it's not that our relationship would have come to an end. I would have actualized, Now, why did I not do it? It was out of feeling the need to acknowledge my own worthiness by saving someone else. He'd had a very difficult upbringing. So I felt that it's only that expression of his difficult upbringing that he's behaving like this. I'm just going to give him so much love that he will improve. He will transform. So that got orderly, placed in, it was my desire to want to save him that actually kept that dysfunctionalness within him in place. And therefore, he always needed to be saved. But who was the one who was beating herself up by allowing this to continue? It was me. And when I chose to stop beating myself up, but really own my own presence, own my own worthiness at home as well as at work, then everything changed. How come from one day to the next? He wasn't, he was this person who had so much control over me. And then the next day he was someone who just couldn't do anything, couldn't even communicate with me. All that had shifted. So it is this orderly piece that enabled me to understand that. So all the learnings from this huge expanse of time from my life, which actually was a difficult time that I really didn't even want to think about, But when in pursuit of coherence, when I took that on, I learned so much. And then each learning was layering on top of the learning before. And it became a very rich body of work. And it was a rich body of work about becoming truly, madly, deeply in love with yourself. That's what emerged there. So as you are, once you've done the completion, then you go into orderly, you can literally go to those moments of completion and distill the learnings from those. Those learnings are already there at a cellular level, but we just have ignored them. And the moment you start to acknowledge the learnings from some of the worst times in your life, doing it after you have completed, right? Because when you do the learnings before you have completed, the learnings are good, but the energy signature of all that you held as negative from that time still remains. So the learning gives you a little bit of a respite, but you don't get your breath back fully. You get a little surge of oxygen, but your oxygen levels don't rise and remain consistently at 98, 99. That occurs when you've completed, and then you go into orderly, you pick out those points of learning, and you know that you are so enriched by the fullness of every experience you have ever had in your life. Good, bad, ugly, beautiful. Everything is contributed so enrichingly. And it is those experiences when here I am in a very different state of connection to the spirit of me. And from that, I connect to the spirit of everyone. And I'm quite a beautiful, vehicle for the fulfillment of the divine plan. And I know it occurs because I am in a state of coherence. And I'm able to communicate what is coming through me in such a way that people can relate to it and implement it themselves. And that is happening because of these secrets of coherence being implemented. I have the super coherence frequencies. I don't need to do any of this stuff. I just hold them for a couple of minutes in case I feel incoherent, and I'm coherent. But it doesn't serve, doesn't give me the opportunity for which I'm here still to really be of service to humanity. So for that, having ways in which I can consciously and physically and mentally engage and apply in such a way that others can learn from that and implement it too is an important part of how I show up in the world. So what's the third secret? You can see how rich this is. And, we're already nearly 36 minutes into the whole thing. The third secret is hallowed. Hallowed be thy name, something that is respected and admired. Usually referred to because it is quite old, important, has got a very good reputation and a solid anchoring reputation. Hallowed is the third secret. To attain coherence. So who are you going to apply the hallowed be thy name to yourself? Because what coherence does is it gets you into that space. Who are you going to respect and admire? You, because you are the ancient one. You are a soul being having a human experience. You are the one that is the most important person in your life. And as a soul being, your reputation is pristine. It is intact. It always was, it always will be. So when you take this on, do it in sequence. Go back to those moments where you went through completion. And in those moments, just really take the time to identify, distill that which really you offer your respect to you. In this 10 years of being beaten up, when I went through the hallowed secret and implemented it for myself, I truly honored myself for my resilience. That resilience has paid off multiple times at work. That resilience has paid off multiple times in whatever little challenges I had as my son was growing up. And someone with that scale of resilience truly is to be respected. And there it is me that demonstrated that. That's something that I saw, that it really warrants deep respect and admiration. This understanding that I am the old, ancient soul presence. When you go into the hallowed way of respecting yourself for that ancient wisdom that you embody within you as a soul being, having this human existence, you become present to how limitless you are. And really all the boundaries that you may have set up for yourself just automatically disappear. No process required. Because these boundaries are artificially created by our mental state, by our thoughts. They're not real, they're just created by our thoughts. And those boundaries don't apply all the time either. There are moments where we are unleashed and we show up as unleashed. At the same time, there are areas of our life where we feel very confined and very held back and held down. But when you go and do a deep dive, a coherence deep dive into the secret of hallowed, and you go and uncover these hidden secrets of what you are about, how you show up in the world, your respect for yourself is acknowledged. You are filled with admiration of yourself. This is the one that really strengthens your core at a core level. And your physical body responds to it also. You develop a sense of strength, inner strength, becomes quite unshakable. And it doesn't matter, there are people that I've done this work with, and there's particularly quite major personalities, media personalities, political personalities, where they've had certain things show up in the media that completely trash them, and it's created such a scar that they start holding themselves back. Or anytime a huge opportunity occurs for them, they don't show up in their fullness. And when we do this exercise, after having gone through completion and orderly, we go into hallowed. And we had one such person at our recent, romance program, RRR program, where there were moments in that person's life which were moments that made her very significant. And she went from one level of celebrity status to a whole new level of notoriety because of false accusations that in her new career, she was always taking, every time that opportunity occurred, she would do something that would sabotage her and put her 6 steps back. And when we took those incidents and the personalities that were involved in those incidents, completed them, and in an orderly way, picked out the magnificence that emerged from there, got this person to even see the magnificence in the perpetrators of what had occurred, she was able to go into this hallowed space and really identify so many aspects of her own magnificence that she was able to honor and respect and truly admire. And it's quite amazing. I mean, this person had severe insomnia, like felt as if this person hadn't slept for many years. And whilst we were there, she just went to sleep. And she hadn't taken her usual sleeping pills. And then it continued after that. Like she didn't need it anymore. It was like, wow. Even the doctors were saying you become so used to them that you'll never be able to do without them. We'll have to keep giving you stronger and stronger versions. And it was gone. There was no need for it. She became coherent. That's really what happened there. And it was to do with certain incidents. So when you are working on yourself, when you find, the areas of completion linked to particular incidents, use the hallowed lay of the land examination, apply them to those incidents, and find what in you, from all the learnings that you've now methodically distilled and discerned, you find respectful, you find worthy of admiration. And remember to acknowledge how limitless you are. Because given that those incidents occurred, they could have destroyed anybody, and they did not do that to you. You are here. Accept the importance and this untarnishable reputation of your soul presence that is being amplified through your human form. The fourth secret is earnest. Earnest is, dictionary definition is very serious, sincere in what they do or what they say, a person who is earnest. And they do take what they say, what they believe in, what they share, and the actions they take, they give it serious importance. They do honor and acknowledge their own importance in the beliefs that they bring forth. That's what earnest is. So in the context of coherence, the fact that you are going to be using these secrets to really dismantle or post-mortem coherence, and the learnings that will emerge, the way that you go into that sense of self-respect and admiration, you actually enter a realm where you are present to you being earnest, the earnest one. Your presence is earnest. So as a result, when you show up, there is a level of sincerity with which you are present to another person that they start to feel present themselves. They start to connect to their own, the areas of their own life that they admire and respect. You don't have to say anything. It's by your demeanor. The earnest demeanor has that effect. I mean, if you've ever been with someone who is this earnest type and is authentically so, there are people who become really serious and important and are earnest, but they're not necessarily authentic about it. You can laugh about it, and may not take that seriously, but someone who is sincere and is authentic and is earnest, there's like a gravitas to it, and it lifts you up into their level. That's the power of earnest. And that actually happens when you enter a realm of coherence. You become that person, the sincerity with which you approach anything. That is what gives you that magical power to pick out that 0.01% that is yours to do. And once you take action there, then the intention is accomplished, and it is done with joy, ease, grace, omnipresent. That happens naturally. So I looked at my life, and I actually looked at, this is where I really went deep into this whole thing about my mother, someone who I felt just couldn't do anything wrong. And it was like a little bit excessively so. I mean, like I really stood up for her all the time, just never felt she could do anything wrong. And then here I am in the, with the super coherence process, that using the camera, physically I'm shown to be incoherent with my mother. And it was quite a significant degree of incoherence. So I literally went into this and did a completion. I didn't know what that little baby was thinking or anything. However, it was a moment in time where a camera showed my incoherence set in. So I decided to go ahead and really complete on that, and I was in where I had gone through a series of spiritual awakening. So I could, project myself to a particular time that I was working with. And what I saw was that this whole notion that even my mother didn't care, was completely wrong. She cared so much. So, I also heard her calling out to the nurse and checking on how I was and how was I being fed, given that I wasn't feeding of her. There was all this conversation that was going on. I saw, so that was great for me to acknowledge. And then as I went through, I saw that this absolutely vehement belief that my mother couldn't possibly do anything wrong, I put so much pressure on her, and in many ways, she carried an underlacing of guilt about causing me so much trauma at such an early time in my life, that even though she never expressed guilt, she wasn't that kind of a person, but it was still there. And then me believing that she couldn't possibly do anything wrong, she just had to be in the best of the best behaviors all the time. And that actually meant she wasn't able to express herself fully as a mother. Unfortunately, I was able to do this work before my mother crossed over. So I had a discussion with her about what I was seeing, and what I was uncovering. And we had so many days of amazing conversations about her aspirations as a young woman, her aspirations of how she wanted to bring up her children. This is something that she had really thought about even before she got married, and the things that she was able to do, the things that she felt regret about. I didn't know I was completing with her, but in that conversation, it occurred. She was able to express and I was able to receive. And then she was, she also shared some of her moments of vulnerability, some of the choices that she felt quite, remorseful about. And here's my mom. And some of them were like, I remember saying to her, well, that was really nasty, what you did, and I just wouldn't have accepted it, or I would have really gone the other way. How could my mother do this? But it wasn't like that. It was an earnest exchange of complete sincerity, a sincerity of honoring each other's worthiness. I was stationed in my dignity and she was stationed in hers. It was really beautiful and powerful. So as a result, she did not lose any respect in my eyes. Her beliefs and her actions were honored for the way they were, just simply as is. There was no judgment that came in, and there was no judgment in her either. That was so important to me, because I had made a choice to step away from my corporate world, and I didn't know what lay ahead. And then, of course, very soon after that, my mom became quite ill, and in a few months she had crossed over. But those interactions were so important, I'm sure, for her to merge into her light, but for me to complete fully and anchor the super coherence around my mother that took place. I'm sure that made a big difference to how I show up in sharing the spiritual awakenings that I experience. And it's this earnest exchange is one of the most powerful ways of exchanging your experience. So you will choose how you work with this. You can just simply choose one incident that you have completed and work through the earnest in that, with that incident. The fifth one is reliable. The fifth secret is reliable. Reliable is consistently good in quality of performance, able to be trusted. By the time you are at number 5, in this journey of uncovering the secrets of coherence, you already at this point have experienced that power surge. You know, you're experiencing that power surge of you in your coherence. And you develop a sense of inner confidence. And you know, a knowingness occurs that you are reliable. You are the reliable one. Whenever all those unreliable people or organizations were showing up for you up to this point in time, they were only matching a frequency that existed in you of lack of reliability. Lack of reliability is a symptom of lack of coherence. So by the time you get to this number 5, you already are in a knowing state that you are reliable. You are good for your word. Your word, your relationship to your word transforms. You recognize and you own that your word gives you your world. What I found for myself when I went into this, it wasn't just that my word gave me my world. It always has done. It always has done. You know, with my ex-husband, it was like, I just can't do anything right. You know, I just don't know what he wants. Anything that I do, you know, sometimes it's amazing. Other times it triggers an abuse reaction. I can't do anything right. Well, yeah, I'm the reliable one. So sure enough, you know, it showed up exactly as that. I wasn't the reliable one. You know, like, so this is quite it's like it hit me in between my eyes almost, this realization. Wow, I thought I've got to get into the state of coherence so that my word gives me my world. Hey, my word has always given me my word. I'm just now going to become coherent with what words I use. So I became very cautious of the words I was using. When you are complete, when you are you experience that you are the one you are giving the hallowed be thy name prayer to, and you step into the earnest vibe, you own your own reliability. You know you can be trusted. The trust frequency gets anchored. The love frequency is an amplifying one. The trust one puts a stake in the ground. You can, from that point on, give your word and you manifest it exactly as is. The 6th secret is affable. Affable is very, pleasantly easy to approach or talk to, friendly, cordial, warmly polite. When you are in a state of coherence, you are all of these things. And affable is also the secret to coherence. Take those moments, take those times which are milestones you've taken to complete, where you may not have felt very affable at all, you know, and by the time you get to this number 6, in that incident, you look for where you retained your affability, where you remained someone who was actually pleasant, easy, and approachable to talk to. And look at what is it that kept that trigger within you, that kept you warmly polite, despite whatever was occurring, kept you courteous, kept you showing warmth. Once you acknowledge those emotional triggers or those mental thoughts, that gave you the affable presence, you can always multiply them and repeat them again and again. You know, you even, like, I used to think that, I've frozen my emotions out. So I don't feel any emotion. Therefore, I don't get upset, but it also meant I didn't feel joy. But lo and behold, the moment I chose me, the damn person, I started crying, and the tears couldn't stop. Well, because we are affable. We are warm. Our bodies are quite warm inside, like physically, they're actually warm. And mentally, they're just really quite stationary. Emotionally, you do have the warmth when you are connected to the spirit of you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there in this body. From time to time, that spiritedness shows up always. So the friendliness is there. And anything that comes in the way just is only there to pass. You can very easily step into becoming unleashed. The final one, the seventh secret, is radiance, happiness, beauty, good health that you can see in someone's face. By the time you're at the seventh secret, you are radiant. You are ready to go even to a deeper level of nuance and pick out those little kernels that may still remain so that your energy field becomes completely clear and coherent, and you can step forward into the realm of coherence. By simply in this state of radiance, you go take a barefoot walk in the park, you are actually really anchoring and earthing this state of coherence. Over to you, Sunny.
Oh my goodness, I'm so glad I wrote so many notes. Mynoo, this is so powerful for me because something just came up that I understood that happened when I was 17, and I really see how it is played so much in my choices, in my holding myself back, and in my just everything that you said. So I want to tell everyone out there, I want to remind you guys, complete, orderly, hallowed be thy name. I love that. Earnest, reliable, affable, and radiance. I'm saying that to you because I often forget one of them. So I'm giving you a little refresher course of our evening. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We will be back next week. Mynoo will be back with us looking very radiant and beautiful, I'm sure, as she is tonight. And I just want to thank you so much, Mynoo, for this evening, because it really meant a lot to me. And I know it did to all of our peeps out there. So again, until next time, guys, bless you, thank you, namaste, and thank you, Mynoo.
Namaste. Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you.